Good morning and welcome to Eduscope. My name remains Dr. Iroro Stephen Isu, and on this edition of Eduscope, we are going to look at the paradox of resources without development. The paradox of resources without development. There is no doubt that Nigeria is heavily endowed, with diverse natural resources. The country boasts of no fewer than 44 major natural resource endowments. 44. Can you beat that? The country boasts of large volume of bitumen, of uranium, of limestone, of zinc, of gold, of natural gas, of crude oil, of iron ore, resources that other countries yearn for, other countries crave for, other countries even go to war for. Providence, God has blessed this country with them free of charge. And yet, the country also boasts of some of the largest number of poor people in the world, some of the largest number of malnourished children, out of school children, people who are living below $2 per day. The country boasts of, some of the largest number of citizens who are living in anguish, in agony, wallowing and languishing, in situations that are antithetical to good living. Why is this the case? Now, mind you, there are other countries that are not well endowed, like Nigeria, with natural resources, and they are doing very well. Very well. Look at China, for instance. Do you know that the entire natural resources that China has, which of course, are mainly coal, is worth about 23 trillion US dollars. 23 trillion US dollars. Now, do you know that Nigeria's natural resources, only natural gas, one of the 44 natural resources Nigeria has, only natural gas is worth about 803.4 trillion US dollars. Can you beat that? There is no comparison. Now, but do you know that Chinese economy today is worth 17 trillion US dollars by GDP? Nigeria's economy is worth just 1 trillion US dollars by GDP. But do you know that there was a time that Nigeria's economy was bigger and richer than the Chinese economy? In 1981, Nigeria's economy was 164 billion US dollars. 1981. At about that time, between 1978, 79, 80, Chinese economy was about 150 billion US dollars. So Nigeria's economy was ahead of Chinese economy. But today, Chinese economy is 17 times richer and bigger than Nigeria's economy, despite the fact that Nigeria has more resources than China. Can you beat that? So now, if you look at the world economy has about between 100 and 105, trillion, US dollars as its value. America has 26 trillion US dollars as the worth of its economy. Now, but do you know that there is a state in America, just a state, one of the 50 states in America, California, is richer than Nigeria, richer than Africa as a continent? It boasts of about 3.8 trillion US dollars. Africa's economy is worth about 3.1 trillion US dollars. And Africa is heavily endowed with natural resources. Let's come to Nigeria. Why have we not been able to translate our natural resource endowment, to prosperity for the teeming Nigerian citizens who are living below the poverty line? Why? Now we're going to look at 5 factors that have negated, our prosperity reality in Nigeria. The first one is visionless, faithless, and insincere leadership. The second one is corruption, of course. The third one is weak institutions. The fourth one is cosmetic developmental initiative. And of course, the fifth one is our awkward federal system. Awkward federal system. Now, our country has not been privileged to have founding fathers, leaders who will lay down their lives for posterity, leaders who will lay the groundwork, for today's development and future development. I've often argued that Nigeria had nationalist leaders, but not founding fathers. Leaders who fought, who struggled, for our independence. But after Nigeria attained political independence, what did they do? So they started fighting themselves, in ethno-religious battles, supremacist, battles among themselves. And so the foundation they would have laid, for the future of Nigeria was completely obliterated, completely negated. It became a survivor of the fittest among them. So there's nothing like our heroes past in this country. Nothing like our heroes past. Because a hero is somebody who does things for others, benefits, who saves others despite threats to his own life. So we have not had, visionary leaders in this country. We have not had leaders who have faith in this country. Because if you have faith in this country, you will not loot the treasury of this country. Nigeria resources are lying fallow in numbered accounts abroad. Illicit funds, laundered funds from the coffers of Nigeria. And yet we say we have visionary leaders? No. One of the basic primary reasons why we have not been able to harness our resources is because we have not had leaders who are selfless, who are sincere, who have faith in this country, who are visionary. So until we have this kind of leaders, we can't begin to talk about meaningfully harnessing, our resources in this country. Another factor is corruption. Corruption in low places, corruption in middle places, corruption in high places. Corruption in Nigeria is walking on all four legs. It is unspeakable. How people will hate their country so much that they will rape the country, they will rip the country, they will plunder and pillage the resources of this country, and render the country, motionless. Nigerians want to begin to take Nigeria as a baby, as our baby, to be protected, to be defended. No matter what happens, our resources cannot become riches if we do not get rid of corruption. Those people who are, placed to monitor, to supervise, to ensure that things go well, they must be wary, of collecting bribes, collecting tips, because without these things, without this reality, our country cannot make progress. The third factor that has negated, negated, our prosperity out of our abundant resources is this idea of awkward federal system. Look at America. America practices, competitive federal system, fiscal federal system, whereby states control their resources and pay certain percentages, of the resources, of the revenue generated to the federal government. So you see the states, they are very competitive. All the states are striving to outdevelop one another. In Nigeria, the reverse is the case. Our feeding bottle federal system, whereby you see more than 27 states are not producing anything, are not contributing anything to the federation accounts. And yet, every month end, they get allocation. In some of these states, even the Ministry of Works don't have work. They don't go to work, they don't work. Why? Because they know that at the end of the month, they will still receive federal allocation, from the federal government. And that is an anomaly that needs to be corrected until we begin to understand the fact that we are doing injustice to ourselves. We are not doing injustice to a few Nigerians or to a segment of Nigerians. We are doing injustice to ourselves until we begin to realize this thing, and take the bull by the horn, by introducing what should be introduced, what should have been introduced long time ago. Resource control, fiscal federalism, what they call true federalism. We'll not get it right. We'll keep dancing, around, the masquerade, of poverty, of backwardness, of self-destruction. Now, the fourth factor that we must look at, that we must deal with, for us to come out from this, this stranglehold of the poverty amidst plenty is weak institutions. We must begin to strengthen our institutions, our regulatory institutions. We begin to strengthen them, ensure that our institutions that are supposed to regulate, you know, companies that go into resource extraction, and refinement, do their job very well and pay the appropriate taxes to the federal government. And the fifth factor is local production and local consumption. No country makes progress without producing what you consume and consuming what you produce. Our refineries must be set to optimum performance. Our government must begin to patronize our made in Nigerian products. You know, how can you tell me that you are importing about 10,000 SUVs when we have Innocent who manufactures vehicle in Nigeria? Why can't you give him at least 5,000 of the 10,000 that they are importing? So that we can begin to strengthen our local economy. It is not by wishing, it's not by praying, that we get this thing right. It's by working very hard. Nigeria has very cerebral minds. Our demography, our geography, they are so favorable to development. Look at the Islamic monarchies in the Middle East. Their climatic condition is very bad. They have very small population. They don't have the kind of resources that we have, and yet they are doing very well. Why? Because they have state-owned, refineries. They have things that have been organized properly by the states. We must look inward. We must encourage local production, local refinements of our products. We must ensure that our economy becomes robust. The Tinubu's administration must take the bull by the horn, must show forthrightness, must show sincerity, must show faith in our country by doing the right thing. We can't continue to go round the circle, the vicious circle, of poverty, of lamentation, of frustration. We must change the narrative. We must change what is happening, and it is very possible. I believe that this can be attained. And do well, to kindly, subscribe to my YouTube channel, share this video, let it go viral. Let it go viral so that you can get to the people, in authority, and they can begin to understand the fact that, we need a change, of our circumstances. Until we meet in our next, session, thank you very much and have a great week.